Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be your host, your moderator for this inaugural event, which is the Zenith Global Economic Forum. And we are discussing a very, very good topic, which is Nigeria is open for business. And I hope you noticed that I'm wearing the colours of the Nigerian flag. Had you noticed that? So I am Zainab Dawari, BBC broadcaster. I'm also chair of the Royal African Society. And of course, for us, anybody who's interested in Africa has of course got to be totally engaged with Nigeria, because as we all know, 1 in 5 sub-Saharan Africans is Nigerian. And it's it's a wonderful country, a vibrant country full of wonderful people, and it's the engine of Africa in many ways, isn't it? A population of nearly 200 million. And, I always say, if Nigeria succeeds, then the whole of Africa succeeds. If Nigeria fails, then the whole of Nigeria fails. And that's why it's all in our vested interest that Nigeria succeeds. And that's what this forum is about this evening on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, when we have a wonderful audience made up of, high caliber people, investors and politicians and so on, to discuss just, chew a bit of the fat about Nigeria being open for business. What are the challenges and what are the opportunities and so on. But to give you some warm words of welcome, please let me ask Jim Ovia, the founder and chairman of Zenith Bank, to come to the stage to give you some brief introductory remarks. Thank you, Jim.
Good evening. You're all specially welcome. First of all, let's do some housekeeping. All the speakers that have been announced by Zainab, please, you have your seats in both the front row and the second row. We have Honorable Minister Fashola is here. We also have Honorable Minister of Finance, Zainab is here. I saw Central Bank Governor, he was around briefly. Oh, okay, please, sir. You need to be on the front. Okay, there's your seat right there. Honorable Governor of Money, please. Okay, good. Who are we expecting?
So we're ready to rock and roll, really.
Honorable Minister of Trade.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be here. I think he's probably on the way hello by New York traffic. Now we see that the traffic that beats Lagos traffic is definite. Am I right? So when people laugh at us that Lagos there's so much traffic, let them come and try Manhattan, particularly during the sideline UN. And Flory, the president of CCA, that's for our president. That's for president of Nigeria, actually. So you can grab my seat. I will squeeze in somewhere when I get through. Yeah, because you're going to be coming up here anyway. Yes. Actually, that seat is reserved for Mr. President. Okay, then who else are we expecting?
No, I think we can probably start our first session. So is there anything you wanted to say?
No, I haven't finished.
Oh, right, okay.
I haven't finished. Okay, housekeeping, great. So why are we doing this? If people had called me and said, look, we are not government. Why don't we leave this for government to do? What's our interest? What's the deal here? They always think anything we do, there must be a deal. There's no really deal other than the deal for Nigeria. The deal that Nigeria has tremendous opportunity where foreign investors will love to come and do business. Quite a number of them are doing business and more will continue to come. But we need to put the message out there. Remember, the reason why we wrote a small book, anecdotes, short stories, is to change the narrative of Africa. Nigeria, truly open for business. We have about 30% of attendants who are not Nigerians, who are foreign investors, already currently in Nigeria, and also some of them who are about to come. So I'll hand over to Zainab, who is a better person to do this kind of a thing.
I know you're doing a pretty good job, Jim.
Yes, Zainab, you take over and do your job. That's what you are supposed to do.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Give me a chance.
Great. So, thank you so much.
Thanks. You give me that back. Thank you. And I should say that our chair of this session is, of course, Aliko Dangote, who unfortunately missed his flight and couldn't be with us. I don't know how you miss a flight when you've got your own plane. Work that one out. But anyway, he is not with us, but we acknowledge his support, and we are very, very delighted to know that he is with us in spirit and very much endorses the objectives of this endeavour this evening. But in his place, can you hear me at the back? Yeah. In his place as chair, please may I invite to the stage, when I say your name, just come and roll up. I'll be sitting here, so just sit where you like. So, chair of this session, which is why manufacturing is a winning economic strategy in Nigeria. And we'll be looking at things such as obviously the importance of infrastructure and power and so on. And the chair is Econimic, chairman of the African Initiative for Governance. Please come and join me on the stage. Your Excellency, Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, Minister of Finance, please, if you would be so kind as to sit next to me here on the stage. Godwin Emefiele, Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, please come up on the stage. Dr. Okechukwu Enelema, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, please, would you come and take your place on the stage? Yeah? Okay, while you're making your way, sir. Babatunde Raju Fashola, Minister of Power Works and Housing. And I don't know if Senator Hadi Sirika, Minister of Aviation, is with us yet. No, caught up in the notorious UN New York traffic. But I know that Florizel Lysa, President of the Corporate Council on Africa, is here. So please, take your pick, either side. Thank you. Very good indeed. So I'll kick off with you, because obviously we have government representatives here, and the role of government in encouraging investors to come to Nigeria, and also investors in Nigeria and business people who, you know, want to go about their activities and so on. It's very important that governments create the right kind of enabling environment, regulatory frameworks, fiscal governance, that kind of thing. And of course there are public goods such as infrastructure and so on which governments have to supply. So from your perspective in the Good Governance Initiative, just highlight some of the key points you feel are relevant.
Thank you, Zina. Can you hear me? Let me congratulate Jim Jimovia, Chairman of Zenith, and of course the Zenith Group, for doing what we should do a lot more of from the perspective of the private sector, which is selling Nigeria, and selling Nigeria with a very good story behind it. And congratulations on your excellent book launch, which I attended in New York as well. And I'm pleased to share this platform with notable Nigerians who have excelled in not just the public sector, but also in the private sector as well. Now, I'm meant to be sitting in a chair that's ordinarily occupied by a very big man. No, it's not about size. We are talking about the size of the pocket. You know, it's much bigger. I want to underscore really, before I touch on the issue you've asked around enabling environment and the importance of it. When you look at the story of Aliko Dangote, this is a story of an extremely successful entrepreneur in Africa who made a lot of money as a trader, as an intermediary in trade, attracting finished products into the Nigerian environment. He made a lot of money. But the money he made really pales in comparison to the money he made when he moved into manufacturing. And I think if there's any story that illustrates the power of scale and the power of the manufacturing of opportunity in Africa, is the Dangote story. frankly speaking, those who have, followed that path, I won't mention names, either from a pure manufacturing standpoint or an industrial standpoint, have also seen transformations in their lives and their affairs. The more important thing for me about manufacturing actually is job creation. And when you look at value chains, when you have strong manufacturers within value chains, you really transform an economy. And that perhaps is probably the strongest opportunity that you can find in Nigeria at this time. Now, how did Aliko get there? How did Aliko, from this trading juggernaut, become this manufacturing giant? And it's quite simple. First of all, of course, the economic returns from doing business at scale in Nigeria are very, very strong, to be honest. Even in the face of tough operating conditions, okay? But then imagine a country that provides very attractive economic returns in tough times, and then an enabling environment is created within that country, then you get super returns. Some people even term them abnormal returns. And there have been several instances where sectorally our government has got it right. One, of course, has been the cement sector. And indeed, actually, even more recently, maybe it's passed in a very quiet way, but just recently, the Demutualization Act of the Nigerian Stock Exchange was passed in record time by the federal government. And it's a unique illustration of the executive, the legislative, and of course the private sector working together to get that.
Thank you very much indeed for giving us that overview and reminding us that Nigeria has a very large internal market, which means it can, be successful for a businessman like Dangote, and also for underscoring the importance of what government can do, which brings me to you, Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed, which is perhaps I know that there are a lot of reforms that have been going on in Nigeria to try to open up the space, to incentivize investments and so on. So perhaps just give us a brief overview of what the government is doing in this area of reforms.
Thank you very much, Zainab. Really happy to be sitting by you, and also let me join you to also thank, join Mr. Ike to thank Zenith Bank for this initiative of arranging this forum. And I was chatting with him earlier on. I said, look, we need more of this to happen, because when the investment community is the one organizing it and saying the kind of business climate we have and the type of returns we have, that it is more believable to other investors that are looking into Nigeria than when government speaks to us. I want to also just say to this meeting that the president was supposed to be here. And almost at the last minute, because of other very important engagement, he's not able to make it. So we're all here, 3 ministers. I see Senator Odoma just walking in to represent him. And since I'm starting, I know if the president was here, he wouldn't speak to just manufacturing, but he will speak more broadly about the economy. We're doing a lot of things in terms of reforms, and the reforms are both monetary as well as physical. And I'm glad that the CBN governor is here. The business environment in Nigeria has received a lot of attention, because when we set out, we decided that we must have a plan that is coherent and that includes all the sectors of the economy. And we realized that there was a need to make sure that the plan is underpinned by the activities of the private sector. So the ERGP, the Nigeria Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, is driven largely by the private sector. The plan is designed to situate government just as an enabler, so that businesses can do what the businesses do best, and we are just there to provide solutions and remove bottlenecks where they exist.
I can go to the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Minister Babatunde Fashola. So the Minister of Finance there talking about, you know, private sector's role is quite clear, but government's role in removing logistical nightmares and bottlenecks and so on is absolutely critical. And on this issue of infrastructure, that's something which is fundamental to this whole strategy of trying to make manufacturing an important aspect.
As far as infrastructure is concerned, let me first quickly speak to the one that is the hot potato of the day, the power sector. Let me say that this sector has been privatized. It was privatized 5 years ago. November this year will be the 5th anniversary and the performance review occasion for the conference. And let me also say that privatization has delivered some benefits to the power sector in the generation side. We are growing our productive capacity to generate power. The transmission side is also increasing. So has the distribution side. But in a value chain where you don't have symphony and coordination, one leaves the other behind. At the moment, in the last 3 years, we have increased power production from 4,000 megawatts to 7,000 megawatts. And this year, there is another 940 coming to be delivered. Next year, 1,115. And these are on-grid supplies only. But where we have the big challenge now is at the 33 kV and 11 kV points where the transmission companies hand over the power to the distribution companies. That's where the biggest investments have to go today. Now, as my colleague has said, you will go back a long time to find a government that has been so clear in its purpose as saying that our core mission here is to do our job well so that the private sector can do what it does best. You will go back a long time in a team that is so united in that common pursuit that this is a private sector driven economy, that we can only lead by laws, regulation, and support and infrastructure.
Minister for Budget and National Planning, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the stage. So really just picking up what your fellow ministers have talked about in terms of, you know, budget allocation and so on. You've got many priorities, but I wonder if you would just give us some insights into how you prioritise your priorities when it comes to attracting investors and bring, you know, this enabling environment we're talking about for the private sector.
Thank you very much. First of all, my apologies. The traffic was, I didn't realize that New York traffic was worse than Lagos.
Minister, we already had that joke, but anyway, don't let that deter you.
But let me congratulate Zenith Bank and Genovia. I missed your book launch here, but I'm looking forward to reading the book. And now, I think that the fact that we have 3 ministers and the governor of the central bank here, it shows how seriously we take attracting investment and the private sector. We take it very, very seriously. When we came in as a government, we met a very dire economic situation, an economy that was dependent on crude oil, and confidence was affected by insecurity and corruption. And so our work was really cut out for us. And the thing that we did was initially to come out with an expansionary expansionary budget with a strategic implementation plan to support that budget. And then after extensive consultation with the private sector, with states, with our development partners, and with the National Assembly, we came out with the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. When that plan was unveiled, it had tremendous support from most people in Nigeria. And because at the center of that plan is partnering with the private sector.
The key objectives of the plan are restoring and sustaining growth, investing in our people, and building a competitive economy. We want to change Nigeria from a nation that consumes to a nation that produces and consumes. We want to be the African production powerhouse. And to do this, Nigeria must be competitive. I think that is the key.
Now, well, you're sitting next to the man who controls the money in Nigeria. He's been listening very carefully to you, Governor Godwin, Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. So, you know, how do you finance manufacturing then? I mean, in particular, agribusiness, because, you know, we've alluded to the fact that although the oil sector is such a big earner, it's not a big employer of people. It only employs about 1% of the labour force in Nigeria. The vast majority work in agriculture still, and there are many people who want to go into agribusiness but don't have the finance that they need. So I wonder just what kind of support you feel you can give to people who want to go.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, well, is one of the agencies of government in Nigeria, and what we do is to make access to finance easy for you. When I came on board in 2014, I came with a vision to run a central bank that is people-oriented, a central bank where it is not just, it shouldn't just be a central bank that talks about price and monetary stability, exchange rate and stuff. But as a developing economy central bank, that we have to be development finance oriented. And that was something I came on board with. And we have since pursued this. And it starts with the issue of agriculture. When we came, lending to agriculture was 1% of total credit in the industry. Today, lending to agriculture as a result of the push that we have given has moved up to about 5% of credit. And we think that is still paltry, but I still believe we have a long way to go. And when the government of President Buhari came on board, that was at the time we were beginning to see the stress as a result of the massive plummeting of the crude prices, which was Nigeria's major revenue earner. Reserves got a hit, reserves dropped very badly, exchange rate depreciated, we saw inflationary pressure on the country, and everything has been done to reverse those trends today. Inflation dropping from about 18.8% in January 2017 to about 11.12% today is a good record, and we're working very hard to make sure we keep it in place. We've worked very hard to achieve a sustainable and a stable exchange rate regime in Nigeria, where as an investor you can say, can I predict what's the level of exchange rate, what kind of velocity of variation do I see in exchange rate? You can have a 6 month, even a 1 year view about exchange rate in Nigeria today, unlike before when it was fluctuating very, very badly. So, from the central bank standpoint, supporting agriculture, I'm sure most of us have heard about what we've done, trying to diversify the economy from oil to support agriculture through our Anchor Grower program that makes funding and access to finance available to smallholder farmers. Here, somebody needs 200,000, 250,000 naira, less than $1,000. They would naturally not find their way through the doors of a bank manager. But through the support that we've been with the Central Bank of Nigeria, these people are able to access finance, and it has helped in increasing... And
good interest rates as well, affordable interest rates.
Affordable, single-digit interest rates. And this has helped in increasing the productivity from rice, for instance, maize. We've moved away from just rice. We're doing maize, we're doing millet, we're doing sorghum, we're doing cassava, just to ensure that the support goes around different parts of the country.
I have two questions. Number one, my specialty is more the new school wave of infrastructure. new school wave of infrastructure, 5G telecom networks, blockchain platforms, and smart contract infrastructure. This is what I believe is the future, and many other developed nations. China's putting much of their resources into it, as is the US, and to a lesser extent, Europe. If I were to create infrastructures with local investors, family offices, and hedge funds from the US, and to a lesser extent, Europe, what incentives would be available in terms of tax abatements, default guarantees, land grants, etc.? To put this in perspective, if I were to create a Nigerian-specific investment fund, it would be a financial return-only fund. So as much labor as possible that could be sourced from Nigeria locally would be sourced. This gives you a multiplier effect in employment, number one, and also increase the velocity of money. So there are entities who have more of a strategic bent. This would be purely financial, and I think this would benefit Nigeria a lot. But as a newcomer to the Nigeria investment scene, I'm asking this question.
What incentives are there for you? Okay, thank you. We'll come to that. I'll take another one. If you could hand the microphone, please, to the microphone.
Yeah. Well, my name is Nduka Obaidena. I was supposed to be on your panel.
You will be. No, you will have an opportunity.
No, but I want to
hold the
CBN Governor and the Finance Minister accountable on some policy areas. This morning, I think Yemi was there. An interesting breakfast session. We met the head of a public sector Japanese pension fund who said they had $1.3 trillion in investment funds. Then I think about our pension funds. Why are they not allowed to invest abroad? So that at times like this, you can have a spread of risk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, look, we've got 3 questions there. Who wants to pick up the one about how do you maintain and boost investor confidence, and also what kind of incentives for investors wishing to go into Nigeria, and then the restrictions on the pension fund investment?
Well, I think from the private sector, and I'll speak, and as I speak, given that I don't speak for a government, you can say I'm objective. Look, we moved from a military system of governance to a democratically elected one in 1999. Since then, we have had a number of transfers of civilian to civilian administrations, smoothly actually, by every standard. And it is that process that builds the confidence that you refer to. In more advanced economies where they have enjoyed hundreds of years of such transfers, you can imagine, of course, that these processes are taken for granted. But I can assure you that there is much more market turbulence about the outcomes of certain electoral processes in advanced markets as well. So the fact that you are transitioning from one government to the other, all right, does not necessarily mean that investors will not be interested, even if it is a democratic system. Yeah. Now, I still think you were talking about consumer confidence, actually, because there is a difference between investor confidence and consumer confidence, which is the behavior of consumers and their propensity to actually continue to consume and spend money and so on. Maybe this is where this issue of the private sector and the role of the private sector, comes into play. When there is an appreciation, as the Honorable Minister of Finance has said, that look, if you look at GDP, right, 10% of spending is coming from government. 90% of spending is actually coming from the private sector, and that continues, from one government to the other. I think the Nigerian economy is becoming more and more resilient to this issue of investor and consumer confidence, but only time is what will lead to the certainty that you see.
Thank you. Minister of Finance, perhaps you'd like to respond to the comments from the floor.
Well, on the pension, Mr. Obaidena, The Nigerian pension law right now has a lot of limitations, because we found out that even to get the pension funds to invest in infrastructure, we had to do a lot of walking around what is provided for in the Act. The Act now agrees that they can invest in treasury bills and in bonds. We had to do a lot of negotiation to even begin to sit down with them to have the pension funds invest in a new infrastructure fund that the government is trying to float. So yes, if it would be very nice if the Nigerian pension funds can go out and invest outside. We also have a workforce that is still very fidgety about how their funds are used, because those funds are not government funds, they're funds of retirees. Many of whom just feel that it's only secure bonds, secure investments in things like treasury bills that can safeguard their funds. So the pension funds are looking at amendments to the Act, and perhaps part of the amendments would be to allow them to invest outside of Nigeria.
Okay, so in this session, we're going to really develop some of the things that we've already touched on. We're talking about, again, an enabling environment for business to thrive, but we want to look in particular at how technology can be used to drive economic growth in Nigeria. Because, Lagos, anybody who knows Lagos, and you all do, of course, it's a real hub, isn't it now? And it's become a bit of a challenge to Kenya, hasn't it? Silicon Savannah. Lagos is really, a thriving hub of ICT, and then, you've got all these young entrepreneurs and these young people who are really very, very good at technology. And it's often said, just as mobile phone technology allowed Africans, Nigerians to leapfrog, maybe technology, the power of technology can be harnessed in different ways in the development field. So that's one of the things that we want to look at. So John, who is the chair, and you happen to be chairman of Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC. We got a little glimpse of you earlier on, didn't we? A little preview. But perhaps as the chair of this session, you'd like to kick off with your reflections.
Well, thank you. First of all, I would like to agree with Jim that we've been in Nigeria for 57 years, and it's a very well-kept secret. But I'm not keeping it to myself. It's a place where wonderful things, profitable things, and things that can change people's lives dramatically. When we began, Nigeria was 35 million people in 1960. Today it's over 185 million people, growing at 3% a year of population. One comment to the gentleman earlier about CCI. We have never had, in our 57 years, one problem with a CCI or capital exportation. Capital is sacrosanct in Nigeria. It has been for 57 years, and trust me on one thing, Nigeria is not only open for business, it is pro-business and pro-capital. Always has been, always will. So I congratulate Jim because he is both a tremendous positive person, and he's also one that challenges the status quo. And I think this is a great opportunity to change the narrative. And what, to me, is the biggest narrative? The narrative is, how do we go beyond the petrodollar economy? How do we grow and diversify our economy beyond the petrodollar? Because, frankly, the petrodollar cannot keep funding our growth. There's not enough petrodollars to do that. So, two things that are dear to my heart. One is agriculture, how we can get agriculture and agribusiness, which is how we can get wealth from our rivers and our land. If we looked at our land and our rivers like oil, we would go very far, and we are. And the second is technology. Technology has such a compelling reason to develop in Nigeria. We need to develop the Niger Valley. And The fourth industrial revolution will be about technology. Nigeria, with the fifth largest population, which will happen in 2050, has to be at that table. 62% of the population is under 24. We know the mindset of Nigerians, entrepreneurial, at any moment, intelligent, smart, quick to grab things. This is the environment in which Nigeria can thrive. These are the jobs of the future. And the gentleman earlier commented, well, I'd like to invest in Nigeria. Investors would love to not invest in Nigeria. They often don't know how. The tech sector is a grand opportunity for everyone to do that.
Thank you very much indeed, John, for those introductory remarks in your capacity as chair of this session. Dr. Evans Waharam, you're chairman of Digital Africa. So I wonder if you could give us a view on how technology can be used to develop the non-manufacturing parts of the Nigerian economy, which of course very, very important. I mean, the creative industries contribute fantastically, don't they, to Nigerian GDP?
Thank you very much, Zainab. First of all, I would also like to thank Jim and congratulate him for making this event to be possible. For me, whoever takes Nigeria seriously and takes development seriously always has my vote. Ever since I've known Jim, apart from the banking we both were in, he's also been one of the greatest enthusiasts with regards to technology, especially information technology. Now, as we all know, we've all been told that there's a positive correlation between having good science and technology and development. And even more particularly, there's a correlation in having ICT and development. In fact, it is for this reason that my organization, Digital Africa, decided to make sure that we do all that it takes to make sure that there is a digital singularity between Africa and the rest of the world. By that I mean a situation where Africa meets the rest of the world with regards to ICT. Now, as a result of that, a lot is being done in Nigeria. I'm really happy that the government of the day is taking the issue of information technology seriously. Part of which is the fact that ICT today is contributing about 11.7% to our GDP. Now that is good. There are not many other countries in which you see ICT contributing that much. And one of the technologies, one of the exponential technologies that is driving the era of the fourth industrial revolution that we are all told we are moving into is artificial intelligence. Nigeria also has really realized the importance of this to the point that the Ministry of Science and Technology is starting an institute for robotics and artificial intelligence in the country. To me, this also shows that we are trying to be positive. But having said all this, there's still a lot that needs to be done with regards to ICT in the country.
And read about the incentives. Well, Minister Enelema, Minister of Trade and Industry, come to you last deliberately so that you can hear what your fellow panelists have to say. John Momo, you are co-chair of this session, so you'll have an opportunity to kind of round up towards the end. But Minister, I keep coming back time and time again to this phrase, an enabling environment. Enabling environment is what you in government really have to do, to be the facilitators, the intercessors, to say, look, we are open for business, these are the guarantees we're giving, this is the stability that we are providing, and these are the incentives that we've just heard about. But you've really got to spread the word, haven't you?
Thank you. Permit me to begin with a short story, since this is the first time I'm speaking. I remember meeting with Jim Ovia 2 years ago, or 2 summits ago, or 2 forums ago, the World Economic Forum in Davos. And we had a similar panel, and I was making a case for the partnership that was necessary between government and the private sector, you know, if we're going to get our story well told, the story of Nigeria. And following that sort of short session, Jim and I had a dialogue. Actually, during the session, I challenged him. I said, if he marketed Nigeria the way he markets Zenith, then I'm sure we'll be better off for it. And Zenith will be better off for it. And trust Jim that, you know, he hasn't let us down. So when he invited me to this session, I said, this is one session I must attend, because I like the fact that he has taken it upon himself and Zenith has accepted, I won't call it a singular responsibility, but certainly the part responsibility to tell our story. And I know that this is just the beginning. And I know that when you get into something, you get into it with that sustained effort. And so I'm very happy to be part of this panel. Now, coming back to enabling environment, I couldn't agree with you more that, you know, the role of government, you will be hard-pressed to argue against the conceptual theme that government's singular most important responsibility is to create an enabling environment for the stakeholders. I agree it's easier said than done, but certainly I'm glad that we're changing the dialogue. You know, I mean, one thing that I know that will be a legacy of this current administration is that we have probably gone further than any government before us, you know, to challenge ourselves both as government and the private sector to accept the responsibility to work together to make Nigeria a better environment to do business. And we have a presidential council that is focused on this, and the ministry that I oversee, or oversight as I say, you know, basically we view ourselves as a ministry of enabling environment for industry, trade, and investment. But what's more important is that, you know, there is a genuine commitment to collaboration and partnership. Because it also takes a certain basic humility to accept that you can't do it alone. You know, even the mere fact that the private sector tells the story, like I was saying when he was speaking, is more credible. You know, if I'm in government and I start saying we are, you know, providing enabling environment, they say, what would he say? But if the private sector guy says, this is where, you know, what my experience has been, then that's a more powerful story. So I just want to leave us with the thought that this is an effort that is worth, you know, undertaking, and it's probably the most important thing we can do for prosperity, for jobs, for growth. You know, it's a magic wand. I always end up with this story that, you know, for those of you that are students of the Holy Scriptures, Solomon was a great king. The story goes that God came to him and said, ask for just one thing. And he said, he asked for wisdom. So the one thing we are asking for is the enabling environment. Thank you.
This session is about healthcare, an ever rapidly important and expanding area of the Nigerian economy. As we look at diversification and deepening the Nigerian economy, healthcare is of course of paramount importance. I think I'm going to begin, if I might, if I could ask those people at the back, please. Sir, the gentleman in the hat. Yes, I'm talking to you. Please, sir, come and sit down. Come and take a seat. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to first of all turn to Aiki Mokwe. And I know that some of your passions beyond building global level banks are the governance. That's one thing you're very important, you're very interested in, and you've done a lot of work there. But what a lot of people may not know is that you also have a great passion for health. And together with Aliko Dangote, I believe here in New York, you announced the coming of ABC Health, the African Business Coalition for Health, which is very interesting endeavor, and we'll be hearing more about the launch of that at the African Union Summit, I believe, if I can say that. I hope I'm not giving away your secrets here. At the African Union Summit next year. I won't say any more about it. What is ABC Health, and why are you investing your very limited time into it?
You know, there is nothing in health that you solve that doesn't then make you rich.
There is nothing in health that you solve that doesn't then make you rich.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
There is no demand challenge, there's no user case that is more powerful than health.
Because it's fundamentally human.
Correct. Okay? So if you find a way of ensuring that those who died of malaria, okay, have a cure for malaria, okay, you will economically profit from it. It's not like a function of your greed level that determines, you know, in terms of price points and so on. And so what we are trying to do is get business people, more importantly, interested in the area of health. And I guess that's the conversation that I like.
Dominic Onyema, MD, I see you agreeing with that diagnosis, Doctor. Please weigh in terms of the importance of the health sector in Nigeria and the opportunities, I guess, from your unique perspective as a medical doctor.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Jim for his invitation. I attended the book launch and was very highly impressed with Jim's perception and expectation of what life in Nigeria can actually be. I am a Nigerian. I have lived in the US longer than I've lived in Nigeria. I've been practicing medicine in the US for over 30 years. By training, I'm an internist, a specialist in hypertension and kidney diseases. I also do research for Amgen Pharmaceutical, Pfizer Pharmaceutical, Ironwood Pharmaceutical, I feel like a prodigal son actually being here in this moment. And Jim pointed out to me that one should not wait for the government to provide an environment that is conducive prior to venturing into providing needed medical services in Nigeria. There is a saying that is actually African: health is wealth. That's very important to digest. Health is wealth. It is not up to government, it is not up to private sector, it is a collaboration of all the parties that are interested in bringing around an improvement in the health service sector in Nigeria.
Now, I've been working in the media for 25 years now, and one of the things it affords you is you have an embarrassment of riches, really, when it comes to meeting interesting people and seeing things and coming up close to things. So that unique perspective can always be come in handy. We have with us arguably Nigeria's leading media mogul himself, Nduka Obaibada, here on a health panel, you're wondering, right? He will tell you himself why he's here from his own unique perspective. Nduka, this is not a media panel, it's a health panel, but I know, tell them.
Well, thank you very much. We have hosted over the last 6 months the Nigerian Health Summit with the World Health Organization, with the World Bank, and the Federal Ministry of Health, trying to bring together all the partnerships within the health sector and ensuring healthcare delivery at a very low level. The last summit was a Saving 1 Million Lives campaign. About 1 million Nigerians die every year at childbirth.
Isn't it the highest rate in the world?
One of them. That should not be. So, a series of policy actions have now taken place to stem that tide, including the launch of the Nigerian Health Insurance or Nigerian Health Fund, where the government has, I believe, provided a budgetary amount, and working with bankers and financiers and stock markets, we should try and build partnerships that will intervene in healthcare for the sake of all of us. Health can obviously be very big, and health and education are the bedrocks of governance, really.
And any successful nation.
And any successful nation. So, coming here, therefore, is to see how we can galvanize investors and others to support Nigerian healthcare, to save 1 million lives, starting from there every year. Thank you very much.
What, from your perspective as bankers, as financiers, is your role in supercharging the healthcare industry and getting investors even interested in it, putting some form and shape into all this? I'll go as protocol dictates to the MD first. Peter.
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that the healthcare sector in Nigeria is probably one sector that fits the maxim, changing the narrative. That's actually a sector that is in need of changing the narrative. Everywhere you have challenge, I think which is what I actually alluded to, there's a lot of opportunity that goes with challenge. If you don't have any challenge, then opportunities will be limited.
My father used to say, never waste a good crisis.
So you find out that the Nigerian health sector, the challenges really portends and presents a lot of opportunities for both investors, managers, doctors, pharmacists, all strata of healthcare providers. But I think one thing we need to get very correct is the structure itself.
Okay, now we're going to open this up. May I, Jim, can I open it up to the audience? I see hands in the air. Yes? Okay, this young lady over here, you're the first person's hand that I saw. Can you stand up, tell me your name, tell me your question, and make it short and the answer, please.
Okay, all right. My name is Dr. Ola Brown, and 10 years ago I started an air ambulance company in Nigeria. So I actually moved from the UK to Nigeria to exploit an economic opportunity. So my question is, and I went from a doctor that was earning maybe £23,000 a year to a multi-millionaire doctor. So I want to ask two doctors on the panel, what would it take for you to come back to Nigeria and help build the healthcare system in Nigeria?
Arise, O compatriots. That's a direct question. You've got to give me a direct answer now. Come on.
It's quite simple. I can tell you. For me, on a day-to-day basis, you come to me, you say, what's wrong with me? I do want to say, I'm taking this test. That test is this or that. Whatever I tell you, I need to be able to prove that that test is absolutely accurate. I want to be in control of it. I do not want to have a test done on you who has come to me seeking for answers, and I cannot rely on the tests that I got. That means you have to let me be able to say, to establish a laboratory situation that basically is 100% correct. If I say that you have diabetes, for example, the blood test that I do for diabetes is 100% accurate. It's not, I tell you you're diabetic, and then the next day you are really not diabetic, because the test that I did was not really accurate. So the bankers, that's where it comes in. The bankers cannot do business with that. The bankers have to rely on me to tell them what truly is the right thing. And it's priceless. It's not something that money can buy. It is only the truth.
Unduka.
Yeah, I'm sorry to take for two of you. I used to live in New York, 57th Street. I worked at Time Warner. But I went back to Nigeria. John Momo is in Nigeria. As journalists, we face everything. Imprisonment, harassment, and everybody. But we stayed in Nigeria to fix Nigeria. All these bankers you see here, Jane could have been in Goldman Sachs. Wale could have been in Mobil. We like a good life, but we have to fix our country. What makes Indian medicine solid today is because of Indians in India. So don't tell me about laboratories. As an opportunity, then to get a laboratory that is world class. So stop running away from your country. Come back home and do the work. Thank you.
Well, you know, we never said this was this is no holds barred.
You know, this idea is really, it's like something that is going to begin to continue to part of Nigeria. It's so wonderful. The United States, the healthcare system in the United States, as much as people think it is the biggest problem in the United States government. Healthcare for the people of the United States.
Universal healthcare.
Universal healthcare versus, basically having, private, individualized as much as you can afford to be. But one thing you know is that the President of the United States does not need to go anywhere to get his health care.
Listen, we have run out of time, but that was a healthy conversation, wasn't it? Don't you give them a round of applause, please? I can wrap up, and we'll have to take this offline, please. No, please, you can have the final word.
No,
yes.
I was going to tell Dr. Yorubunda that the President of Nigeria doesn't need to go anywhere for healthcare if we have people like you in Nigeria doing what you're supposed to do. And
but
basically, there's no...
What you don't know is that he did whisper to me just now that he's coming home next week.
That's the...
So, no problem. Okay. So, we're going to wrap up here. Give them another round of applause. Excellent panel. Excellent panel. Okay, please stay with us. I'm going to hand over now to Ayla MacLeod. I think I'm pronouncing your last name right. Who's from the BBC, may I say, the British Broadcasting Corporation.
This is a narrative that the BBC is committed to telling, and something wonderful that a new narrative that Jim has highlighted in his recent book launch on Monday at the Harvard Club. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to the man himself, Mr. Jim Ovia.
Good evening again, and the hall is still full, and the contracted, paid for time and space is already spent. We are all supposed to have left here about 9 o'clock, but I'm very impressed and pleased that we still have the hall. People are still here. So I must thank all of you for coming. One thing that impressed me the most of all the sessions, of the 3 sessions if you will, is the last session, because it has to do with health. Health is wealth, isn't it? It has to do with health. Now, the most important thing is between yesterday at the book launch and today. Who could tell me how many medical doctors, Nigerians, not international or not foreigners, really, Nigerian medical doctors are in the audience? Who could just guess? 1? Okay, 2. Oh, okay. Actually, 6 Nigerian medical doctors, all in diaspora. Now, if we include the one we imported from Nigeria to come, that's Dr. Ola. Dr. Ola, stand up for recognition, really. Now, Dr. Ola is the CEO of Flying Doctors. Now, we have about 7 medical doctors just here alone, all Nigerians. The question now is, how come we have not really improved the healthcare system in Nigeria. I don't know whether it is the government that has to create the enabling environment for us, or whether it's the medical doctors themselves, or it's the bankers who will provide the financing. If they will eventually make money and some profitability. One way or the other, it still has to be done. It has to be done. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. I want to thank the panelists.